Today, I'm going to be sharing my COVID story, so I hope you'll stick around to hear about my experience with coronavirus, COVID-19, the pandemic of 2020, whatever you want to call it. I'm here to share all the details. Hi friends, and welcome to the Budget Bounce. If we haven't met yet, I'm Jen, and I talk all about living life on a budget, saving for our future, paying down our debt, and all the life that happens along the way. So today we're going to be talking about life that happens along the way. And by that, I mean I'm going to be sharing my COVID story. Now, here's the thing is that I kind of ended up talking about this in an impromptu manner on another video that I shared. I created a video called Family Health Update and posted it in March of 2021. And if you haven't seen that, I'll link it down below for you so that you can go check it out. In that video, I talked about everybody, but I pulled this footage out of me talking about myself because I realized that there was enough of it to just make it a different video. It was going to make that video so long if I included it. So I extracted it out, gave everybody an update on my husband, my parents, my kids, the dog, everything. And now here I am. I'm going to share this with you. Now, let's keep in mind that I filmed this in an entirely different setting and mindset. At the time, I ended up talking about my whole COVID story, which was not my intent. And so there are some things that I would, if I'd planned better, I would have outlined and made sure that I was including things and made it flow well. And so there are going to be places where I'm going to include photos and video that may seem a little bumpy, like not as smooth of a transition as maybe I would normally put together. And that's just so I can include information with you, for you, excuse me. Some of the video and some of the photos are going to be hard to hear and see. And I just want to put that out to you now, if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, because I was really, really sick and I could not breathe. And there is a video clip towards the very beginning here of me while I was in the hospital where I'm trying to talk and I can't get my breath. And so if that is something that is upsetting for you, you may want to consider fast forwarding through that or muting it while I'm talking. The thing that I want to make sure that I share with you is that I survived COVID, both of my parents survived COVID, and those are amazing blessings. I also want to share with you that my dad and I both still suffer from the effects of COVID in different ways. My dad happens to have COPD, and so it's expected that that's going to continue to be an issue for him. It really wreaked havoc on his lungs that were already damaged, greatly damaged by the COPD. And so when you look at me, I had perfectly healthy lungs going into this, and I had to come home from the hospital with supplemental oxygen. I was devastated. I called my mom crying like a baby because I didn't see it coming. I was so excited to go home, and then I had to go home with oxygen. That is how much COVID just ravaged through my lungs, and it was a long road back. And I talk a little bit about that in some of the clips that I share. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn on the video that I recorded, and know that I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have. Feel free to leave them in the comments. You know, this is my experience. This is not everyone's experience. I had somebody on my team who got it, that the only symptom that he had was he lost his sense of smell. COVID is no joke, and I'm not here to preach about that. I just want to share my story. And I hope that it helps somebody who maybe needs to help somebody around them that they care about, or, you know, gives you a sense of what to expect if things get really bad. So let's just head on over there. Moving on to my health, there have been quite a bit. There have been so many things. I've kind of talked about them a little bit here and there, but let me just put them all in one place for you. So COVID was really hard on me. I mentioned that I contracted it while I was taking care of my parents, and I missed about a month of work because of it. I was hospitalized because I also got pneumonia and was not able to sustain at home. It's the end of day 4 in the hospital, and I don't have to wear oxygen, But this is what it looks like after I take a walk down to the end of the hall. COVID is no joke. This isn't a challenge for you to have with your friends. You don't want this. I'm on day 12 since symptoms started, and I have a long road back, and I'm not a super unhealthy person. I do have an underlying disorder, a blood disorder, and I am heavy. But other than that, I led a regular lifestyle before this happened, and it's gonna take a long time to get back to normal. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. So I was in the hospital for 5 days, and then I had to come back to my parents' house. I didn't get to go home. I had to go back to my parents' house to quarantine after being in the hospital. So I finally came home on September 18th. It was a Friday, and unfortunately we lost our 10-year-old dog unexpectedly that day. We had to put her to sleep, and so that was awful, and it was sad, and it was all of these things that it would be without being incredibly ill. But I came home from the hospital with supplemental oxygen. I had to carry an oxygen tank and wear oxygen whenever I was moving around. So if I was sitting down, I was fine. But as soon as I stood up, even to just go across the room or go across the house to go to the bathroom, my oxygen would drop too low, and I needed to have the supplemental oxygen on. So I was really sick and still struggling to get my own breath. We lost Bella, and then it really had an impact on my recovery. I actually had a setback that night and the next day with my vitals, and just my body was not reacting well to the stress, and I almost had to go back to the hospital. The nurse really wanted me to go. I asked her to give me one night in my own bed. I said, I've been gone for 3.5 weeks. I really need to sleep one night in my own bed. And so I said, if it's not better by tomorrow morning, I will go. And as it turns out, that one night is what I needed. And then I was on my road to recovery. I was off, like I said, for about a month, and then I returned to work, and we were in the middle of this huge project at work. And I started on a Thursday back to work, and I worked straight through, including on the weekend. I worked about 20 hours over the weekend. Straight through to Friday, October 9th. And it was midday, and I had been working since about 4:00 in the morning, trying to just keep up with everything that was going on, because all of this had started while I was out. It was something I would have been like the lead person on. And so I was trying to catch up and keep things going. And, we had a deadline of October 13th. And it was the 9th, and I stood up from a call. I just hung up from this call, and I was in incredible pain with my left leg. And so I called my doctor's office and described what was going on and said, please don't make me go back to the ER. Please let me see my doctor. And they're like, she's not in today. Unfortunately, I had been to the ER already 4 times in like the last 4 weeks. And so I really didn't want to go again. And she said, when I got done describing what was going on, she said, you have to go, and you have to go right now. And she scared me. And I'm glad that she did, because we got there, and sure enough, the leg that I had looked at just three weeks before at the ER by my parents' house, which is about 90 miles away from the one that I was at on this day. 3 weeks before, there was nothing there, but on this day, there was a 10-inch clot in my leg. And that's why my leg hurt so badly. I could hardly put any weight on it. And they did a CT scan and found a clot in my left lung as well. And I had a history of blood clots, because I had blood clots in both of my lungs in 2013. And so, and we found out that I have a blood disorder. So let me just circle back to that and share that I have a blood disorder that predispositions me to clotting. We found out about this while I was hospitalized with blood clots in both of my lungs. And now I have this disease that everything I'm seeing online, they're talking about the fact that blood clots are a problem with COVID. And on September 2nd, the day before I went and had the test that ended up being positive, it was my third day of symptoms. I was already pretty sick with fever and the fatigue had set in. I was still working. I called my doctor's office and said, hey, I've got all this history. Would it make sense to preemptively put me on like a blood thinner or something to make sure that this doesn't become a problem? And I really felt like her team dismissed me. They put me on hold, went and talked to the doctor and came back and said, well, we don't know and da-da-da. And if you really want to do something about that, then you're going to need to call the specialist from before. Well, I hadn't seen that specialist in 6 years. So when I called them, first of all, they did the same thing. I felt very dismissed, but I was too sick to fight for myself. Okay. So I just did not have the energy. I was trying to take care of my parents. I was trying to work. I was trying to get through the workday while I was sick. I just didn't have the fight in me. And I went and tested the next day and I was positive. And then 3 weeks later, 4 or 5 weeks later, whatever it was, then in October, these same doctors who dismissed me when I called are the ones who ended up having to care for me with my follow-up care after going to the ER. So needless to say, it's very possible I'll be switching doctors. That just didn't settle with me at all. As I was trying to be preemptive and I was very angry. When I was off another week after having the blood clots, I couldn't work for another week. And I was on pain meds because I was in so much pain for like 5 days straight, 24/7. Like I had to take them I think it was 6 hours. Every 6 hours I had to take them because I would be in so much pain as soon as I wore off. And so that really messes with your psyche, with your emotional state, with your mental state. And I was kind of in a dark place by Wednesday after I'd started taking all of these on Friday. And so, anyhow, I woke up on Thursday and went, okay, that's enough of that. We're going to back off. And I started stretching out my meds and just suffering through it because I needed to get off of them because that was not working for me. So yeah, I was really upset about that whole thing. And anybody who will listen, I share this story with, advocate for yourself. If you or somebody you know ends up testing positive for COVID, make sure they're advocating for themselves if they have a blood clotting history or a blood clotting disorder that causes them to be more likely to get clots. Because blood clots are a known thing. Everybody in the 2 ERs that I talked to in the 3 different visits that I went with blood clot scares, everyone in the hospital is talking about it, but the people in the clinics that I was talking to really didn't know anything about it. So anyhow, I will get down off my high horse now. And let me also say, for as upset as I was about how that got handled, I am so incredibly grateful and thankful for those who are in the healthcare profession. Even those who upset me during this still took care of me to an extent that I couldn't take care of myself. And so I appreciate each and every one of you and thank you so much for all the sacrifice that you have done throughout this entire time. I just can't even say enough good things about you. So I don't want you all to think that I have no respect whatsoever for the healthcare profession. This is specifically about the people I was interacting with that in this specific example. It's not everybody by any means. The other thing that you guys heard me talk about a little bit was how long it took me to get my stamina back. So I really struggled with getting back. I mean, fatigue was a thing for a long time. And, I was really, really sick, sicker than I've ever been in my entire life. And, I was in the hospital for 8 days in 2013 with those blood clots, but that was nothing compared to what COVID did to me. And, I'm sure my weight has something to do with that. I know that there have been studies that are showing that. But I really don't I have that blood clotting disorder, but I really don't have any other conditions that are on the list of, to watch out for the high risk thing other than my weight. So we bought the house and we had to pack and we had to move and we had to unpack. And that was all extremely difficult. And I knew that when we took that on, I knew it was going to be a rough road, and we're still unpacking the house because I just don't have it in me to make sure that everything is put away, with inside of a month. And so little by little, we're making our progress to get that all finished. But, now I decided to pick up doing YouTube again after I'd taken about 4 months off. And now all of my extra time is filled with that. I don't have the energy to do full-time job and do this and finish with everything in the house in a very short time period, I guess. And then the other thing that I really haven't talked about much, I don't think, is this was really hard. My hair basically died on my head. So this is going to be emotional because it was really hard. So starting at right around Thanksgiving. So my dad had been in the hospital the whole week before Thanksgiving. And now it's the week of Thanksgiving, and I had a lot of stress in my life because my dad had been sick. I was still recovering. We were buying the house. We were doing all these things, but my hair started to fall out. And it was not just a little bit. Like, I noticed it when I was combing it, and I noticed it when I was washing it, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And over the course of between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day, I lost at least half the hair on my head. And I had been throwing it in the trash, and I started, after that first week, I decided to pull it out and put it in a bag. And over the course of that time, I didn't even grab all of it, because I didn't think of this until I guess it was probably a couple weeks in. So I didn't grab all of it, but I have a bag full of my hair, you guys. And my hair was down to like here at that time. So, it basically it dried up and became extremely brittle, and it came on so incredibly quickly. I actually thought maybe I was really sick again. And I didn't say anything because I thought, well, if I don't say anything, I was in complete denial. Like, don't talk about it. Like, don't make it real, just it'll be better when you wash it the next time. And then I'd wash it and it'd be all over my hands, and I would be combing it and it would just be coming out in globs. And it was so, so upsetting. I never really thought that I would be that upset about losing my hair. But it was very, very difficult because it was scary to wonder, because I was wondering what is wrong with me. It wasn't really as much about how I looked as it was about what's wrong with me, because I was still recovering from being so sick in September and October. So I was afraid to wash it. I was afraid to comb it or brush it. I was afraid to disturb it in any way. So I started wearing it up all the time. So this is what my hair looked like in like August of 2020. So right here is a picture of that. And then this is what it looked like. Here is some video that I shot after we moved in the house. And while my hair is not down where you can see it, and I don't have any pictures of it down, I didn't think to have her take a picture of it before I had her cut it all off. But this is what it looked like before. And then this is what it looked like when I was doing the video, and you can see all the stuff sticking out while I have my hair pulled up. It's not smooth at all. And it's because my hair was so dry and brittle. It just wouldn't do anything. And I went from having a big bun up here, like you can see in this picture, to this tiny little thing. It was like this little tiny rat tail back here. I couldn't even get it pulled up here because there wasn't enough. And I was afraid to pull it also. And I had this tiny little bit of hair. And the way that my stylist described it was, when I came in that day, I had washed my hair that morning and just let it air dry. And I left it down that day. And she said, you walked in and your hair was like this. It was just hanging in strings like this with space in between the locks, right? You want your hair to be smooth, and see how you can't see any space in between my hair here, right? So I had these spaces hanging in between of air in between my hair. It was awful. It looked awful, and it felt awful. And anyhow, I obviously was traumatized by all of it. And luckily, I had an appointment scheduled with my doctor for December 23rd, which was my 3-month follow-up from having COVID in September. And so when I went to go see her for that follow-up, she asked what had been going on. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I'm losing my hair. And I said, and then not just a little bit. And I described what was going on, and there were some tears, and I was about to tell her about all the things that were going on that were stressful in my life, and maybe that's what's causing it. And she stopped me and said, it's because of how sick you were. You were very, very sick, and we have seen patients. It wasn't just about COVID. It was about how incredibly sick I was and how my body was responding to that. She said that people who become really, really sick like that often will experience a few weeks later after recovering, they'll experience this type of thing where the body is adjusting and saying, okay, what is critical for survival? And oftentimes hair and nails are the first things to go. And that's exactly what happened. I don't keep my nails long anyway, but they also were very brittle and breaking and that kind of thing. So that was all a part of it. It was all tied together. And then as it happened, the following week on December 29th or 30th, I had an appointment with my stylist that was already on the books. I mean, she books a whole year out. So I had that stuff booked from a year before. And we had a blizzard come in that day, and she texted me and said, Jen, if you want to cancel your appointment, I totally get it. And I said, oh, no. I have a hair emergency. I have to come. And so she asked what was going on because she was very concerned at that point. I'd never, ever said anything like that to her. I described it in text. And then when I got there and showed her what my hair looked like, I mean, she was just so sad because, you know, it was not what I looked like the last time she saw me just 10 weeks before. So, that's when we cut it all off pretty short. I mean, it's probably out another inch or so now, but she cut it pretty short. She said I would have gone shorter, but I had such a big bald spot back here. She knew if she cut it any shorter that it was going to open that up and just be a big bald patch back here that I couldn't do anything with. So she left it, and we talked about what I could do to try to counteract this because my doctor didn't know when it was going to stop. And how long it would last, and if my hair would even come back. She had no answers for me. And so I needed to go on the offensive. So my stylist recommended a hair treatment system, which I had used it a few years ago when I lost my hair thin quite a bit when I had thyroid disease and I didn't know it. So I was losing my hair and I didn't realize it was a lot slower then. It was over the course of a couple of years. And so when I noticed how thin my hair was, I started using this. So I used it again. It was a 3-step system. And then also she recommended a gummy supplement. And I was talking to some friends about that. And one of them said, hey, I took this powder collagen supplement also that has helped me in the past. And so on that recommendation, I went and got that. So first of all, let me just show you here what I have. So this is the hair treatment system, the hair and scalp treatment system that I use. It's called Nioxin. And I'll leave links to all this stuff down below. But this is for, specifically, I went through and did the quiz. And this is the kind that I needed for my specific problem. And then this here is the the collagen supplement powder that my friend Christiana over at Well Behaved Wallet, some of you probably watch her. Christiana is a good friend of mine, and she actually recommended that I try this out. So I've been putting this in a smoothie. I probably do it about 5 days a week. And then the other thing was we had talked about this supplement, the gummy supplement that my stylist talked about. And then Christiana, bless her heart, actually ordered me a bottle of them and had them sent to me. And so that's the hum gummies. And so these have like folic acid and biotin and things like that in them that are really good for your skin and your hair and your nails. So I've been kind of doing the triple whammy where I'm doing all 3 of these things. I don't do all 3 every day, but I do all 3 several times a week. So, and it has worked. I went back to my stylist just last week for a trim. I get my hair cut every 10 weeks. It shows up every couple of months in my budget. So getting my hair trimmed, and she was squealing with delight. Literally. She was so happy at how different my hair looked, in March compared to what it looked like on December 29th or 30th, whatever day it was that I went and saw her last. So she is, it's much healthier now, and I can actually do something with it. And she confirmed things that I can't see, even if I put a mirror to a mirror so I can see the back. She confirmed there's lots of new growth back there. So my hair is growing back in, all things I didn't know until she told me. So I'm feeling a whole lot better about things now. So that's my COVID story up to a certain point, but I am still dealing with the impact or the effects of all of these things that happened related to COVID. I mentioned in a recent video that we spent almost $100 on a pair of shoes for me, which normally I would not do that, but I could not find a pair of shoes that I could get my left foot into. And my left leg is the one that had the blood clot in it. And ever since I had that in October, my leg and ankle and foot have been so swelled, and I have a sedentary job where I'm sitting at a desk all day long, where it's hard for me to get my feet up. And no matter how many times I try to get up and move, run downstairs to get a drink, run to the bathroom, go, I don't know, put clothes away in the bedroom, whatever you're doing to try to get up and move during the day, it does not help what's happening in this leg. And so things that have been happening since then is in February, it might have been January, I can't remember. I've talked to so many doctors in the last 6 months, I can't keep track of when I talked to everyone. But sometime early this year, I was at an appointment and said, I am getting to the point, my foot hurts. It's so swelled. I cannot do anything with it. It's hard to walk up and down the stairs. It's throbbing all the time because of how incredibly swelled it is. Can we, try compression stockings again? I'd had them several years ago, and I just think I didn't have a good fit or a good brand or something. And so we tried again and went to a totally different place, had a much better experience. So now I have compression stockings for both of my legs. They're in different sizes because my left leg is much bigger than my right leg right now. And they are helping immensely. Now, the problem was I started wearing them and I started having itching, like massive itching, like so incredibly miserable type itching. And so I ended up having to see an allergist to see, am I allergic to something in here and that kind of thing. Went through that whole process. They said I'm not allergic. He said it's probably the compression and it's causing an itching reaction, but he said I'm not allergic. So I had to come up with another solution. So the place that I got the stockings from, the compressions from stockings from, did not have anything to offer. So as far as advice or anything. So I just started doing some research and found some cotton sleeves that you can wear on the lower part of your legs. And so I put that on, and then I put the compression stocking on over the top, and voila, I don't have itching anymore. Thank goodness. So now I can wear my compression stockings more often, and that is helping to control my swelling. Now, in the meantime, through all of this, I have gone through 5 or 6 online orders of shoes and slippers where I'm trying to find something that I can get my feet into. And while I can get my right foot in all day long, that left foot, the edema on the top here, it was so high that I can't get my foot in underneath, beyond where the shoelaces or even the Velcro if you're doing that. And so anyway, we have finally gotten this resolved. Once the compression stockings were to a point that I could wear them, finally in March, we spent almost $100. I think it was $96 or $7 on a pair of shoes that I can actually wear. Now that the weather is nice, I went the whole winter and could not wear a regular shoe. And so I hardly ever went out, which was good with the pandemic and whatnot. But still, if there was snow on the ground, my feet were soaked because the slippers I had were not waterproof. It was just a mess. And so I continue to struggle with the swelling, but as long as I can wear my compression stockings, I'm going to be able to control that. And really, when I look back on where I am now in April compared to where I was, in September when I had to go to the hospital, I actually have made a ton of progress, and I feel like I have gotten a whole lot of my stamina back. If I'm not where I was before, I'm really darn close now. It was really hard to move in November and December and be unpacking in January and everything. It was really soon after how sick I had been, and that was a struggle. But For the most part, my life is back to normal. My lungs are back to normal. I was only on the supplemental oxygen for maybe a week or so. I cannot remember, a week or 10 days. I had to have home health care come and check on me. I had to have, I mean, like, guys, this is how sick I was. I'd never experienced any of this for myself. I had only ever dealt with it to help my parents get it. And then I had, I think for 3 weeks after I came home, I had therapy and a nurse checking in on me, 2 different appointments every week. You know, once my oxygen levels, I don't know if you guys noticed when I was showing my finger with the pulse oximeter on it that showed my heart rate and my oxygen level. And so anytime it goes below 90, that's bad. They want you to always be above 90. And the higher you are, if you have no lung disease or anything, the higher you are, the better. And so I don't know if you noticed, but from Friday to Saturday to Sunday, how different my numbers were. I think it was Saturday and Sunday I showed pictures of. I'll show them here. But you can see how my oxygen level is really low. My heart rate is really high. And this is just resting. I was just taking these pictures while I was resting. So it really took that overnight, that first overnight in my own bed to get the rest that I needed. I think I slept like 11 hours and I woke up the next day and all my vitals had stabilized. If my heart rate hadn't gone down, if my BP hadn't gone down, if my oxygen levels hadn't come up, I was going to have to go back to the ER again. And that was the last thing I wanted. So needless to say, I have maxed out everything in regard to my insurance. That was all maxed out in September. And our year runs July through June. So everything has been covered 100% since then for me. All this other stuff going on. So that is everything I wanted to share with you about my COVID story. This is probably a long video, even after editing. I'm sure that this is going to be a long video if you stuck through it to the end. Now you know, and I can stop wondering when I'm going to put this video together for you. I will leave you with this. Are a lot of awful, scary things happening still in the world, and there are also some amazing, amazing things happening. I hope that's what you can walk away from my story with, is that even in the hardest days, there are good things to think about and be thankful for. With that, I am going to point you over to my playlist of our new house. Let's talk about something happy now. So just click right here and you'll be able to get the playlist with all the videos that I have put together regarding buying our new house, moving in, getting settled in, all that good stuff. That's all I've got for you today. Till next time.